Hey everyone, it's Travis. I'm with Brad, and you are watching or listening to the I Must Stand podcast. I Must Stand is more than just a podcast, though. It's more than just a YouTube video. It is.
I Must Stand is a resolve. It's a resolve to take the responsibility needed to keep both feet in the game, moving towards the future worth living. We help people gain clarity on their aim and break the mindset that they are defined by the space between. The I Must Stand mindset is having a consistent awareness of the times in one's life where they fall into patterns of victimhood and realizing that taking responsibility is the only way out. We provide transformational events, coaching, masterminds for men, equipping them with responsibility for their faith, their family, their body, and their business.
So let's jump in. Today, well, first, let's set some parameters to this. So we're new to this.
Yeah.
We're figuring our way through it. We're excited to do it, but we're also learning as we're going. So we're going to be playing around with different formats as we do this. If you're watching or listening, please give your feedback in the comments or as you rate and give reviews and whatnot. Only if they're nice, though. That's the only things that we care about.
That's it.
Constructive stuff, don't put that. We're not going to listen to it. But today we're going to have a conversation. We have a topic in mind that we're going to converse about, which is what a conversation is. No really guiding principles to it. We just want to be able to have a conversation and let it fly. So today, throwing it on the table, we are talking about responsibility. We are talking about owning the way that we show up in the world. So I'll kick us off and say the thing when it comes to responsibility, I love the phrase, and I think we got this from our friend Chad who posted it on his social media. A man becomes a man the moment that he realizes nobody's coming to save him. It is absolutely like you are responsible for you. No one else is coming to save you. Like that's it.
Yeah. Yeah. Nobody's throwing you a life jacket out there or a life preserver. You are in charge of your own destiny, and you are in charge of your actions, your thoughts, the patterns you fall into. Victimhood is the opposite side of that, but responsibility is exactly what we're talking about today.
Yeah, and you said like the patterns that you can fall into from time to time, the ones that you're conscious of, and the ones that are subconsciously happening that you're unaware of.
Oh, right.
A lot of people would say things are unintentional or they don't happen on purpose. I want to rephrase or reframe that in people's minds. You are very intentional, regardless of if you're aware of it or not. There are strategies that we use that will keep us from responsibility. And I know it was true for me in my own life. There became a time where I got to the point where I was, the conscious side of me felt like a passive bystander in my own life.
Right.
I was allowing my subconscious to drive. Like I was allowing the things that kept me from moving forward, like shame and like fear, anxieties, the victim mentality, like you're saying. I was in a place where those things were driving me.
Yeah.
Ultimately, I was still responsible and still am responsible to learn about the patterns or behaviors that we have, the strategies that can innately come out of us.
Sure.
And to control those things.
So give me an example of maybe a way that's shown up for you. I know we've talked about many ways it's shown up, but for those of you listening, and I'd love for you guys to get to experience some of the ways that we have had experiences that you guys can glean from. What's one way that may have shown up for you?
Yeah, and I'll bring some language to help, bring some context to it. So I believe that we all are vision-driven people. We have dreams, we have goals, we have things that we want to accomplish. We have an ideal of what we want our life to look like.
Right.
And when we are faced with these opportunities or these visions, these things of what the future could be, we have to take account of where we are or the current reality. Like, this is where I want my life to look like. This is what I want to stand for. These are the commitments that I want to hold. This is where I currently am. And the space that exists between, we'll say the tension, is filled with all sorts of stuff that your subconscious is throwing at you to essentially prevent you from getting to those visionary things. Why? Because it takes energy away. Our bodies only care about preserving what is.
Yeah.
Keep the spacesuit alive.
Sure.
Keep the spacesuit alive. That's the only thing our bodies care about in the slightest. So when I give that framework of the future that's worth living for, the commitments that we desire to uphold and the visions that we have, current reality of where we are, and then the tension. A great example, I had a desire to do this type of stuff, to be able to do a podcast, do video, do YouTube series, talking about these types of things. So this is the future that's worth living for. This is their commitments that I want to hold to, or I am holding to make that happen.
Right.
Before we were doing this, when we weren't doing this, there is, what are the action items that I need to take to be able to get here? So taking account, trying to count the cost of what it's going to be to get from here to here. But then in the tension, I hear the subconscious voice saying, like, people are going to think this is a joke. People are going to think this is stupid. You have nothing to offer.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You start to hear the voices, and your subconscious is starting to knock on the door and say, hey, that's not worth pursuing.
Yeah.
That's not worth pursuing.
It's the insecurities, whether they were, internalized by yourself or others from a young age. Yeah, it's a real thing, man.
It's a real thing, and it's really important that we learn about those things, because ultimately I'm responsible. If there's a vision or a future that I want to live in, I'm responsible for making it happen.
Right.
So when I get into this portion and I start to hear the voices speaking, and then I could look at what does it cost to do a production like this? Do I want to spend that money? Well, I've got other bills that I need to pay, and are there other things that are worth the time? Oh, I'm so busy, right? And I start to make all these excuses. Well, we were having a hard time putting our schedules together. The resources just aren't there. I don't know if there's going to be worth it or not. I'm starting to fall into this victim of, I am dependent on the circumstances being right to make sure this goal happens.
Right. And I hear what you're saying, and for me, it boils down to a commitment. Whenever you set out in your mind, whether you said it out loud or whether you just had it in your heart that this was something you wanted to do, you made a commitment to yourself that this was something you wanted to do before you weighed all the cost. You saw all the pros to it, and you were willing to jump into it. And the second that you made that commitment to yourself, that became one of the driving factors that essentially put your word on the line.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You said, this is the point where my word is either going to come to pass, or I'm going to give up on the dream or the thought or the vision that I had for myself. And the more that we abandon that commitment or that word that we gave to ourselves, the more we erode at that responsibility piece.
Yeah. And that is taking away all the self-confidence.
Oh, yeah.
That's what erodes self-confidence. It's literally the confidence in myself. And it's all based on holding our commitments.
Sure.
Do I have a history of doing what I say I'm going to do?
Yeah.
Right? And if I build that confidence time and time again, the more self-confident I become. The easier it is when I'm sitting at current reality, looking towards the future and facing the tension. Mm-hmm. Because we can't control when those thoughts come up.
Yeah.
I can't control when I wake up, and I said this a couple weeks ago. I've been working out, doing really well with that. I have a commitment that I've been holding that I feel very strongly about. I have reasons why it's worth doing. I've counted the cost, and I'm pursuing it, and I'm holding the commitment. There are some days it is easy to hold that commitment. There are some mornings at 5 a.m. when the bed feels really warm and nice, and my wife is hugging me as I'm trying to get up, and it's like hard to get out of bed. Those are the days that, it's a lot tougher. And, you know, some days you just wake up, you feel like crap. Some days you wake up and your inner voice like, don't do it. It's not worth it. Like, this is stupid. You're not going to accomplish what you want to get after. I can't control any of that.
Sure.
What do I control?
You control the things that you actually show up to do.
Right. I control me.
Yeah.
I choose how I respond to those things.
Right.
In the same way as we're talking about all the tension and the things that we face, that again, we'll talk about strategies a lot. We'll talk about the tension a lot, because this is just a good framework for pursuing different goals and visions. But you can't control what exists inside of this, but you can control your resolve for your commitment. And like you're saying, if you just show up, if you just hold your word, the self-confidence comes and you're going to get there.
Yeah.
And that is the responsibility taking it. Just keep in mind, like, your body is wired. It's hardwired to fight against you.
Sure.
In those things. In the responsibility portion of it, saying, regardless of what I'm up against, I'm going to own the way I show up.
Yeah, and it's a domino effect, you know, like, it's the little things that eroded it, and it's the little things that will get it back for you.
Yeah.
You know, it's waking up at 5 a.m. for that workout that you promised yourself that you were going to do, that you promised, you know, that you were going to lay out your clothes the night before so you weren't so stressed or whatever. But like, the little things that you do to keep that word to yourself build, like you said, into self-confidence. They build into habits. Habits aren't fun at first. Habits feel like responsibility at first, and they do fall under that category. But habits, when well maintained and moving towards a future worth having, don't feel like habits anymore. They become a way of life, and they bring life.
Yeah.
So
again, when we look at the framework of the vision, the future that's worth living for, current reality, and then the tension that's between all of that, it's important to recognize, you know, our bodies are hardwired to fight against us when we're in the tension. It's important to recognize that we choose how we continue to go about those things. But it also is important for us to recognize that when we talk about strategies, like, there is a payoff when we give in.
sure.
There's a payoff to us not owning our parts in that. There's a payoff that comes when a short-term payoff that exists inside of that tension when we give in to those voices. When we drop the commitment, ultimately, that we're responsible for, we're giving in, and we are getting something out of it.
Right. And you can get something out of it that feels great in the moment. Some things you're going to be getting on purpose. Some of the things are going to be subconscious, but you're still doing them.
It's still on purpose.
Still on purpose. Yeah, we're not going to argue that it's not on purpose. It's on purpose.
Yeah, you might not know that you might not think that this is a purposeful thing, but it is a purposeful thing.
Right.
And it's a lot of the transformational work that we do. That's why it's centered around the deep dive into what we don't know that we don't know about ourselves.
Correct.
We'd rather not look at those areas. We'd rather keep those things hidden, because they
expose you.
They expose you. That's a painful process to go through, number one.
Right.
Number two, it shows what the payoffs are. You're able to, you know, putting the framework in, what are the payoffs, the short-term payoffs that you're gaining? I get to look good.
Yeah.
Right?
Who doesn't want to do that?
Who doesn't want to do that? I mean, I get up every day. It's a struggle. But, you know, we want to look good. We want to feel good. We want to be in control.
Yeah.
And we have all these strategies that, if we do not do the work to own how we show up, own ourselves, own the mastery of our self-leadership and how we show up, we'll always fall into these patterns of giving into the short-term payoffs.
Sure. And two, it's, you know, while it seems like you have the power in the moment, you're giving your power away with these things, because what you're doing is you're setting yourself up. It's like playing chess, man. You've got a million plays you can put out there on the board, but you know.
I'm gonna stop you right there. I'm gonna be honest. I've never played chess.
Oh, wow. So off camera, we're gonna play a little chess.
I'm also content if I never played chess, but for you.
Strategy-wise, there's so many moves you can make some of them make sense. Some of them are just a move, and some of them are going to put you a position where you have a move 2 or 3 plays ahead that the other player's not even thinking about. So just like these strategies and these payoffs, you may be moving towards some type of short-term gratification, but you know that what you're doing is moving you in a direction that actually takes you further from the goal that you're looking at, or the person that you decided you wanted to be a long time ago that you've given up on.
Yeah.
And it hijacks it. It just hijacks the whole game.
Yeah.
And it looks enticing. It looks fun. You're getting, like I said, some type of short-term payoff or pleasure out of it. But when you look at it in the grand scheme of things, there's so many other ways you could have gone about it, ways that would have solidified the commitment you made in your mind and also played out in a way where it showed up in your faith, in your family, in your body, in your business. Those pillars we talk about with I'm a Stand. You have to be able to show up in a way that's not just the easy move.
Yeah.
Everything I've ever done that has gotten me anywhere in life was not easy. The easy days come and the easy days go, but when the hard days come, I know something good is coming out of it because I'm grinding for a reason, for a purpose. And most of the time, the reward is tenfold of what some easy, cake job or cake day might be.
Whatever the cake job is.
Whatever the cake job is. And the cake, not to say that you're not going to have easy days, you're not going to have
Sure.
easy decisions. Not everything is going to be a level 10 decision, but when you avoid the level 10 decisions because the level 1 and level 2 decisions just seem easier and seem to be moving you towards some progress,
Yeah.
that in and of itself is abandoning yourself.
For sure. I mean, that's something that I experienced really the middle-ish end of last year. I felt that a lot. I felt that I had these dreams, these desires, these visions that I wanted to do, and I would get all in behind them and think that, yes, I can do this. This is great. I didn't properly count the cost.
Right.
And as soon as something, I didn't clarify my aim, I didn't count the cost. So when something difficult, I had to face something difficult, whether internal or external, I folded in the tension.
Right.
And a lot of the frustration or the angst that I felt when I would look at my life and say, this is not what I expected, or this is not where I wanted things to be. How did I get here?
Would you say that some of that may have come from the assumptions that you made up about the directions you were headed?
Oh, yeah. We make stuff up about stuff all the time.
Yeah.
And that can be a whole other topic. It's a strategy.
Yeah.
Dan, a good friend of ours, says we are meaning machines.
Sure.
I'll give you even a perfect example of that. Last night, I got a text at like 1 a.m. from one of my coworkers, and our team's been working extremely hard. He's finishing up at a job site, and we're having to shuffle some stuff around. And he was like, hey, I need you to be here at 12 today. And the thought that came into my mind was like, he wants me to go and he wants me to work at this job, like at this job site. Like, I've had a ton of stuff going on recently. I've been busting my butt as well. And why is he trying to make me do this on this day, like on a 12-hour notice? Why? Like, that seems inconsiderate.
Right.
And I'm like, how much? I just stopped myself, like, how much am I making up about this? Okay, I don't need to, I can ask a clarifying question before I run to a judgment. But all that was going on right there was a strategy.
Yeah, those assumptions are you laying down responsibility.
Right. And I would do that in the business pursuits that I had, or the other goals outside of business. As soon as I would come up against something that was difficult or hard, I would just walk away because I didn't have any ownership. I was not owning the decision of this is a commitment I'm making.
Yeah.
And it's a miserable place to be in. Nobody talks about that. Like you hear all the time from like especially our parents' generation, where a man needs to hold his word, and you hear that it's like, yeah, a man should hold his word because he ought to hold his word. But why should he hold his word? Because if he doesn't, he's going to feel miserable.
Right.
Because he's giving up on himself.
He's giving up on himself.
Because the way the world occurs to us is in language. If we can't even freaking hold the things that we say that we're going to do, what is a man?
Yeah.
Right?
You know, they say the men that win in life are the men who have the most difficult conversations in one day. And I think a lot of that comes down to the men that are willing to go out and clarify assumptions and dig in.
Yes.
Are going to get the most wins out of that day.
This is so good. And it's so tempting not to.
Oh.
It's
so easy to
it's so much harder to nut up and to go to someone and say, this is what I'm making up about the situation. Can you help me understand what your thought process is?
Yeah.
Versus just, why would this person do this? Why would this person do that? How could they, do they not know this about me? How could they do this when I'm going on?
Sure.
And that the victimhood mentality that comes out it's a go-to strategy for me. At least my body does. I think it's a regular thing that people are doing. It's a cultural thing right now.
Yeah.
But again, we have the future that's worth living for. We have the current reality, and when we're faced in the tension, all these strategies, our bodies are throwing everything at us.
Yeah.
The victimhood mentality is one of them.
Yeah, it's the tendency to want to run from negative feedback. You know, when you go into an argument, you go into a clarifying conversation, whether that's with a spouse or a child or a coworker or a boss or whoever that is, like we go into it with the mentality of, I don't know what I'm going into. And the unknown is what's scary. Like you said, we've made up this story in our mind that this is true based off of past evidence, based off of our assumptions. I think one of the coolest experiences I got to experience was we were at a retreat in Los Angeles, California last year. And it was an event where we all kind of got into a circle and we got to get some really honest feedback. It was an event where someone had to stand up in front of, 8 to 10 people in a circle, and these people got to go around and give their judgments, their assumptions, and they were to label it as, I experience you as. And it could be good, it could be bad, it could be ugly, but that particular event that I participated in, it put me in a spot that I'd never been in before. It put me in a spot where I got to see all the reflections of myself that I was unwilling to see up until then. And what it did was, when I take that out of a training experience and put it into real world experience, okay, if I'm willing to stand in front of people, the ones I love, the ones I work with, and actually get a clear image of the guy I'm showing up as, man, I can come at an assumption from a whole different angle. So then if I come at the assumption from the angle of, I'm going to be myself authentically and I'm going to show up accordingly, then responsibility is a byproduct of that.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
So for the people who are watching or listening and they're resonating with what we're talking about, whether it's the feeling stuck portion, whether it's the part of them that has a vision and they've folded in the tension, whether it's that they're recognizing that there is a subconscious voice that's constantly speaking against them, what would you say to them? What are some things that is helpful for them before we wrap up to get them into a healthier spot, for them to move into a place where they can be responsible for themselves?
Yeah, themselves. That's the key right there, is themselves. If you're not willing to be responsible for yourself first and foremost, how are you going to be responsible as a human being, as a man, as a father, as a business owner, a husband? If you're not responsible for being yourself, and that starts with your word. I 100% believe that. Like, keeping your word to yourself. Start with something really small today, whether that's I'm going to get up at 6 a.m. instead of 7 a.m. and hitting my snooze, or whether that's, hey, I've been thinking about losing a little bit of weight. Go ahead and commit to something. Make a promise to yourself today and go for it. Just,
Not for other people.
Not for other people. It has to be for yourself. And then you also have to give yourself recognition for it, because if you don't actually recognize that you're meeting your word or your standard, then you're not getting the reward of actually getting to that point. Like, you will not be able to build a habit that's sustainable if you don't recognize your successes and your wins. If all you do is beat yourself up and the next promise, and you
Which
never
is another
celebrate.
strategy, by the way.
Oh,
shame is a massive strategy. That keeps you where you're at. But continue. Sorry to interrupt.
But if you're looking for something today to kickstart that responsibility piece in your life, start with something small and work your way up. And reward yourself whenever you do get that. Tie somebody in to that commitment so that they get to actually see where you're at, as far as like a responsibility piece to yourself, but then also being held accountable to someone.
Yeah, absolutely. I think another thing that people could do is jump into coaching.
Oh yeah.
Experience coaching. These habits, if you can see patterns in your life, or if you've experienced this before, if you feel stuck and you feel like it's the same story over and over again, that I have these dreams that I want to accomplish, but I can't do it, or I've not done it, it's just not happened. You need to take a deeper look. You need to explore the self. You cannot own the way that you show up until you're willing to learn every little part and look at every little part about how you show up.
Yeah. You need a pattern interruption, and you need someone to look in your blind spot.
Right.
So when it comes to coaching, that's what you're looking for.
That's what coaching is, and that's what we want to offer to you if you are watching or listening. It's a service that I Must Stand provides for men. And so if you find yourself in that story, or resonating with that story that we were just talking about, we would love for you to reach out to us, whether on social media, on our website, whatever it is, and we can talk through what coaching plans would look like.
We also have a 3-day men's event coming up in April. You can check out our website and see what those dates look like. I think we've got 4 of them on the books right now for 2024.
Yeah. The Wake Weekend.
The Wake Weekend. So it's a 3-day event for men. If you're really looking for a pattern interrupt,
I was about to say, talking about a pattern interrupt.
That's where you need to be.
Right. And at the end of the day, going back to even what I Must Stand is all about, you are in control of you. You are in control of the way that you show up. No one else is going to do it for you. You are responsible. There are things that you don't like about your life. If you have a vision for where you want to be, a future that's worth living for, it is your responsibility to do everything in your power to pursue that. I believe that God has given you a vision to do those things, and it's up to us, it's up to you specifically for your vision to go out and make it happen. And so that's what we're here for. We're here to champion you. We're here to root you on or cheer for you, whatever it is, however we can be of service to you. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. Be on the lookout for our next episodes. If you enjoyed it, please leave a review, leave a comment, whatever it is. We'd love to interact with you. We are open to feedback as well. I was joking. We'll take the critiquing feedback as well. But until next time, thank you.